When you see Chris Bryant and Aaron Rodgers staring at an awesome logo, you know
Oh
it's time for
yeah.
the Allied Rivals podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third episode of the Allied Rivals podcast. My name is AJ Herschel, the kid from Roto Hackers, and y'all already know I'm here with my partner, Cademan Bauer.
Yep.
My man, how you doing?
Pretty much the same as last week.
Yeah.
Except that we did go on vacation to the east. We hit
Nice.
like Ohio, New York, New Jersey. Spent a lot of time in New Jersey and then Pennsylvania for the last few days.
Nice. That's a full road trip. That's a full
Yes,
road trip.
sir.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I've
And I
not
think
been
the best
anywhere. I've been in my house. So I'm glad one of us got to go out.
Cool. I think the best part of that trip was Niagara Falls. So
Yeah.
if you're watching this,
oh,
you
man.
got to go there.
We'll go ahead and get into our episode today. We've got a great episode. Now, a little bit of apologies for our last one. If any of you noticed that the news kind of seemed a little bit outdated on some of the stuff, or we missed some topics, we had pre-recorded that one, and a lot of stuff broke that week. We're going to start live streaming episodes after this one. We're going to make them shorter, so we'll get more episodes in. We'll get to focus a lot more on certain sports, and also we'll just be live streaming them, so you can ask your questions live. Let us know what you want us to talk about there. And per the usual, please let us know. Drop it in the comments. Let us know what teams, what players, what topics you want us to cover, because that really helps us in deciding what we're going to do for our episodes. So Let's go ahead and get started. There's a lot of news. Do you have a sport you want to start with, Cademan, for today?
Maybe the MLB. There's a lot of news there.
Oh my goodness, there's a lot of news there. Where do we start?
I would start with talking about the Marlins and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Their outbreak.
Oh man.
And
do you think the MLB is going to survive?
Games.
Yeah, because like we've already the Phillies games have been postponed, Brewers games, Cardinals games. Do you think the MLB is going to survive, Cade?
Either the season's going to be shortened more, they're not going to continue it, or there's going to be so many double headers.
Yeah.
It's just that'll be crazy.
Yeah, I think it was a smart decision by the MLB to move the doubleheaders to 7 games because, I mean, you're already in a coronavirus shortened season. Nobody wants to play 18-inning games right now. I mean, it does feel a little bit like discount baseball to some extent because we've had a lot of 8th and 9th inning rallies so far to start the year off. But I get it. It's a smart decision. It's a necessary decision. I think baseball's in trouble though. This week is really going to tell. If one more team gets coronavirus, they might cancel it altogether from what I've heard.
Yeah.
I really don't want it to because it's been a fun year. On the bright side of the MLB, Aaron Judge has hit homers in 5 straight games. The Cubs are 7-3. And I don't know. And your prediction's right, Cayman. The Reds have not started out hot either.
Nope. But the Brewers are a mess.
Yeah,
Yelich.
that one I was right on. Oh. We split that one 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a mess.
1 for 27 with 12 strikeouts.
And then Lorenzo Cain opts out.
And then Lorenzo Cain opts out. Yeah, the Brewers are in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think we talked about that on our last episode too, because I was saying, like, you look at the Cubs and they have like 15 different players that they could put in if someone opts out. Brewers, they need their stars in there if they're going to succeed. So if Yelich doesn't step up, this is going to be a rough year for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Yoenis Cespedes for the Mets opted out after disappearing for who knows how many hours. That happened.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Not
but
for
Nick
the team.
Markakis is back. But Nick Markakis is back for the Braves. And that's important. That's important. Is there anything that surprised you in the MLB so far, or any teams that stood out to you to start the season?
Honestly, the Cubs did. They stood out. I mean, the Brewers and Cubs opening series, the Cubs won that one 2-1, and that didn't surprise me. But I think they're doing pretty well, and I think they're probably going to be the best in the division now.
Yeah, and I mean, going off of Kyle Hendricks just throwing it was like the first complete game to start the season since 2013. That was nice.
That's
That was
terrible.
nice. Beautiful start to the season for us. Other than that, I mean, baseball's playing, so hopefully we keep going on this. We had like a nice thing going to start the season too. It seems like a lot of stars are having a rough time. Bellinger is not having a great time at the plate. Acuna has just hit his first home run, but Aaron Judge is in full form. Javi Baez is coming up with clutch hits for Chicago. So I'm hoping this will still be a fun season. I'm hoping it'll still be fun. Moving on, we'll go ahead and get the NBA out of the way. The NBA is also back. How's it looking to you so far?
I mean, right now, pretty much all the teams that have clinched. I mean, pretty much every team that's going to be in the playoffs has already clinched it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like there's like not a big race to like the bottom seed in the playoffs. So that's a little bit sad, but I think the bubble is working pretty well. And it's very exciting watching the best teams playing the best teams over and over.
For sure. Yeah. I will say it is a little bit it's almost like the bubble is just trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be facing who for the middle teams. Like, I mean, there's a decent gap between a bunch of them, but especially in the Western Conference, because Nuggets, Rockets, Jazz, however those games end up is going to determine who faces each other in the playoffs. So I almost feel like it's more important for them because Lakers, Bucks, Clippers, Raptors, we all know they're going to be 1-2. And look, I know that technically the Spurs have a chance, but I feel like Ja Morant's going to take it for the 8th seed for the Grizzlies. 14 of the 16 teams have locked in a playoff spot.
Yep. It's
so
just those poor 2 teams.
Yep.
They're just waiting.
Yeah, and I mean, technically speaking, the Magic 13 teams, because the Magic technically haven't clinched, but they're both like 7 games. The Wizards would have to go 3-3, and the Nets would have to lose every single one of their last games for the Wizards to get in. That's not happening. It's not happening. So I mean, other than Grizzlies and Spurs, the NBA, I mean, it's not going to get super exciting until the playoffs start, because then games mean something for the best teams. But it's going to be a fun playoffs. There hasn't been much defense though.
No. It's been a game of just plowing through people. Like, even with teams that don't have the big stars, that's pretty much the game. I mean, Russell Westbrook, though, he's just been insane. Like, he may be the most dominating player in this bubble now.
Oh, for sure. He's
crazy.
He's a force of nature. It'll be interesting to see if the Rockets can pull it together, maybe pull off an upset, but I mean, people were already complaining that teams didn't play defense in the NBA, and now everyone's scoring 118 points a game or whatever.
Yeah. Whew.
Well, that is pretty much it for the NBA. Really fast, I'll just go ahead and mention, in case you didn't notice, Kidman, the Blackhawks upset Edmonton in Game 1. No. We've got a chance. The Blackhawks will win. We've got a chance. For the 5 other people who watch this who are also excited, guys, we've got a chance. We Blackhawks fans have a chance. That's all we need.
Cool.
Thanks. MLS is in semifinals. College football, the Big Ten, Pac-12, and SEC are all going to be playing all conference, which really kind of messes up the ACC because they were open to having one non-conference game to keep open, Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina, but that's not happening. And the Big 12 is yet to make a decision. So I think we could maybe see an ACC Big 12 type thing. Maybe. I don't know. It's going to be weird to determine a champion this year. It's going to be strange.
Yeah. Anything else from college? I mean, I think that's pretty much it right now. It's moving slow.
Yeah, that's about it. So that's pretty much most of the news that we had missed from the last one. Last thing I do want to say about the MLB, they've expanded to a 16-team playoff.
Right.
Cademan, what does this mean for teams like the Brewers, Red Sox, White Sox, who were all basically on the outside looking in originally, but now they've got a good chance.
I don't know, man. I think this honestly means that the Brewers have a better chance, but if they're so bad, or if the White Sox stink, or if the Reds keep doing how they're doing, it's not going to matter if they make it into the playoffs or not. If they're not going to go anywhere, if they're just going to lose the first game, no one cares.
I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in teams like the Padres, because they've come out hot to start the season, and the White Sox are finally getting it together. It seems like Reds are going to have to pull it together. So yeah, for teams like we said multiple times, NL Central is most competitive, and if baseball keeps going, the Reds and Brewers are going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Indians have started off hot, so the White Sox are going to be looking for something. It's going to be really close. And we forgot to mention one of the star players who's had a rough start to the season. Shohei Ohtani has not done well in his first few starts, and he's saying he's having arm problems. You don't want to hear that after coming off of Tommy John surgery.
Nope.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's just more pain right there.
Oh, yeah. We talked so much last time about the Angels needing to win with Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Anthony Rendon. One of those, they're already 3-7 to start the season.
Yeah. I mean, they're kind of like the Cubs, in my opinion. They have so many stars. Just, are they all going to do well? Seems like the Cubs are, though.
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah, that's the difference between the Angels and the Cubs to me, because the Cubs just have ridiculous amounts of depth on their team. The Angels is purely like, we've got 4 people who can play baseball, and we need them to do well, otherwise we lose. That they're in a bad spot, I think, the Angels. This is going to be a rough year for them. And anything else, Cademan, you want to say before we get into the, as you say, the meat and potatoes of our episode?
I don't think so. I mean, there's one more thing. We don't really have to talk about it, but what do you think about like the NFL's opting out situation?
They keep pushing it back. It's pushed back to, I think, Thursday now. Players can wait to decide to opt out. I don't know. I'm wondering if we're just going to see a flood of players decide to opt out at the last minute. But if we're just going to see a bunch of players opt out late and decide with their families as it gets closer to the deadline, because we've already seen people like Eddie Goldman opt out. 2 Titans offensive linemen have opted out, I think it was. That's not going to help. I don't know. What do you think, Cade?
I don't think it's going to be good. I think they have to put stricter boundaries on it. I mean, the MLB is kind of getting a little bit messy right now, because if the star player on your team opts out, then that's going to affect your team really bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, with certain teams that have like 7 running backs, who I don't know who that would be, but that won't affect them, like the Ravens or any other team that has just stacked roster on a certain position. But if you lose your quarterback, that's not good. Like if they opt out, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, I think for a lot of teams, especially the NFC North, if Kenny Galladay opts out, Lions are in trouble. If any one of the Packers stars opts out, I think they're in trouble. Allen Robinson opts out, Bears are in trouble. I think our division probably might be hurt the most if any one of the stars opt out, honestly. Man, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough. Also, Antonio Brown decided he wants to play football again.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. And so they've suspended him for 8 games. So, Cademan, you're a GM. Let's say you're someone like the Seahawks or the Ravens, who have some depth at wide receiver, but not a true number 1. Do you take Antonio Brown from the waiver, from free agency? Would you pick him up?
I don't know. I feel like at this point you don't, just because the guy has problems and he's inconsistent. He says, you know what, I'm going to stop playing this game. You know what, I'm back in this game, And I think I just wouldn't want him, honestly. At his prime, probably I would have, but not anymore.
Yeah, because technically it almost seems like because how old is Antonio Brown at this point? He's like 20. No, he's 32. He's 32. Okay, he's a little bit older than I thought. So he's a little bit getting into the wrong side of 30. But I mean, theoretically, he should still be really good. With his like one game with the Patriots wasn't that bad that he had last year. But it's just he's so indecisive. And he's got to clean up his character if he's going to be on a team this year. A team, he's got to either clean up his character or some team's just going to be really, really desperate.
No, let's get into the bread and butter, man.
There we go. Here we go. So we're going to split this up into 2 different episodes. This week, we're going to be giving our NFL offensive rankings. We're going to give our top 5 for tight end, wide receiver, running back, and quarterback. I wanted to do the offensive line, but Caben wouldn't let me. Also, next week, we'll be doing defensive. We'll be doing probably defensive line, linebackers, cornerback, safety. But to start us off, we're just going to go ahead and get this one out of the way. Caden, how about you start us off with your top tight ends? You've got top 3, right?
Yeah. Number 3, I'd probably put Darren Waller. He had great stats last year, and this is basing all on last year's stats. He had 71 yards a game, and he was only targeted 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty good for a tight end, but he makes plays. He's not the fastest player, but he's smart, you know? And then number 2, I put George Kittle. You saw him last year. I mean, Super Bowl, he was dominating. He's a full pack. Like, he blocks, he can catch.
Yep.
I don't know. But I think the one guy better than him is Travis Kelce.
That's my boy!
He had 1 yard more per game in receiving yards, and he's targeted more. He had same amount of touchdowns, but I just think that he is like everything you want in a tight end. I think he makes more plays for his team. And I like his attitude more, honestly. I think he's a better dude.
Yeah, I mean that's subjective, but
sure.
What's it called? Yeah, I mean tight ends, honestly, at this point, it's really nice to see tight ends becoming more of the Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, we can catch passes too, type kind of guys instead of just the prototype extra offensive lineman. So here's my top 5 tight ends. At number 5, I went to 5. I've got Darren Waller at 5. He's got a lot of yards. He had one really good year. 4, I've got Zach Ertz, who's just a touchdown machine. It doesn't help his stats that Dallas Goedert is there. He keeps eating into his touchdowns, eating into his targets. I mean, at his best, oh my goodness. At his best, Zach Ertz is just a touchdown machine, but Goddard's there, so he's got to split time. At numero 3, at number 3, I've got Mark Andrews, who came alive in a Ravens offense last year. And if you're standing out in an offense that has Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Hollywood Brown, and 5 other players, I don't know how you do that. Andrews finished with over 850 yards. He had 10 he had 10 touchdowns on the year. He was a great red zone target. He was a great fantasy football play for me last year. I really like Mark Andrews. I'm excited to see where he goes uphill this year. Mark Andrews is really stinking good. Number 2, I've got George Kittle. Like you said, Cade, Kittle's a whole package. Kittle is everything you want in a tight end. He's fast, he's big, he's strong, he catches passes, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. He only played in 14 games last year, so that does knock down the stats a little bit. But other than that, he's an incredible player. And number 1, I put Travis Kelce. Am I biased because he's helped me win fantasy championships? Maybe, but still, I love Travis Kelce. It's like he's the original. He's the original 20. He's like the original late 2010s tight end, and Kittle's like right next to him. They're like 1 and 2. And if someone put Kittle at number 1 and Kelce at 2, I'm not going to argue that much with you. But it helps that Kelce is one of the most vital players on his team. He's a target monster. Over 1,200 yards last year. I love Kelce. He's my number 1 tight end. Easy.
Cool.
After that, we'll go ahead and get into our top 5 wide receivers. This is what separates the elite from the really good. The Stephon Diggses from the Mike Evans of the world. Cademan, do you mind if I go first in my top 5
No,
here?
totally, man.
Cool, thanks. So at number 5, speaking of the Buccaneers, I've got Chris Godwin at number 5. Over 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. The dude's incredible. I'm a little bit concerned about his statistics for the upcoming year, though. It's him, it's Mike Evans. Gronk is going to be there. Brady spreads the ball out. They're not going to throw as much as Jameis Winston does. And that really helped out Godwin's stats a lot. The fact that Jameis Winston threw 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions because they didn't have any other plan besides let's let Jameis loose. So I like Godwin a lot. And that none of that takes down his skill. And that's why he's number 5 for me. He's a top wide receiver. He's definitely elite. I just think the guys above him, there's reasons why. I'll explain. How about you give your number 5 for us, Cademan?
Okay, I put DeAndre Hopkins. He had over 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. He got 77 yards a game. And he had Deshaun, so he had a great QB working with him. And, I mean, I'd say he really knows what he's supposed to do. So, like, on a lot of teams, you see a wide receiver have a miscommunication with the quarterback. That doesn't happen with this guy. He knows his job. He knows where he's supposed to be. I think that's something really cool about DeAndre Hopkins.
Oh, yeah. How about while you're there, give us your number 4.
Yeah, I put Chris Godwin there. He just had better stats than DeAndre last year. 1,300 yards, like you said, 9 touchdowns. And I'm kind of going to argue with you. I think now that he has Brady throwing for him, he's going to be better.
Interesting.
Because so many times last year, Jameis Winston threw like 5 feet away from him or 5 yards away from him when he was open, and that got picked off.
Yeah.
And I don't think Brady's going to do that, and I think Brady is going to give him just as many receiving yards or more. Just because he's not going to throw all those interceptions. He's going to be smart about where he throws it. Yeah.
Interesting. So I'll disagree with you on a little bit on this too, but mine is for the reason that Brady will make his team better, and that's my problem with it. Brady's always had a number 1 wide receiver, always, whether it's Randy Moss, whether it's Julian Edelman. But it's the amount of weapons that the Bucs have that worries me. They've got Chris Godwin. They've got Mike Evans. They just signed Shady McCoy. They have Ronald Jones. They've got rookie Keyshawn Vaughn, who's a goal line threat. And they got Rob Gronkowski, who Brady has had almost a telepathic connection with for his entire career. And Brady is great at spreading the ball around as well and getting people involved. And Godwin had a lot of yards and touchdowns because, look, Jameis Winston had a very inconsistent year last year, but he still he led the league in yards and touchdowns for a reason. So I think Godwin's due for a little bit of regression simply because I don't think that the Bucs are going to throw as much. And also Brady's will spread the ball out more. So I disagree with you a little bit on that. Cool. I'll go ahead and give my number 4. My number 4 is going to be Davante Adams. He's a great player. He's not exactly the strongest player in the game, but he's an incredible route runner. He's got great hands. He finished under 1,000 yards, but he had turf toe, so he's out for 4 games. It happens. 5 touchdowns. 1,000 yards. This is a lot because if we're going purely based off stats, he's not top 5 this year simply because he didn't have the numbers because he was out for 4 games. But peak Davante Adams is one of the hardest receivers to cover in the game. I don't really know. You're the Packers fan, so I'm sure he's on your top 5 somewhere. I'll let you explain it more when you get to it. Who is your number 3?
Davante Adams.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, like you said, he had under 1,000 yards, only 5 touchdowns. But he was still having 83 yards a game, which is pretty good. I mean, especially coming off an injury. He he had turf toe, and I think like that slowed him down especially. But it was his first year. It was the first year of like a new head coach, so that's going to slow any offense down. But I mean, he had a great year for starting with the new head coach, and I think with this being the second year, I think it'll even be better. I mean, he definitely is the best route runner in the NFL, in my opinion.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And no defense wants to play Devontae Adams.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. The one thing that worries me about the Packers is, in my opinion, especially in the red zone, they're going to be running the ball more. And while I think Devontae Adams is definitely due to do better because A, he was out for 4 games. B, he's one of the best receivers in the league. C, you're right that their new coach, it's year 2 with a new coach. But does the fact that, to me, the Packers seem like they're going to be running the ball more. They drafted this year offensive linemen and running backs were their priorities, even though they knew that their second wide receiver position was shaky. What do you think? How do you think this is going to affect the Packers?
I mean, I don't know. Matt LaFleur, I think, is trying to move them towards more running. And, I mean, Aaron Jones had 19 touchdowns last year, which we'll talk about him later. But, I mean, they know the Packers know they can count on both of those guys. And I think they're going to actually divide it up pretty well. Maybe not as much in the red zone, but I think definitely, like, Devontae Adams in the middle of the field is unstoppable. Like, not unstoppable, but I think you get what I mean.
He's tough to stop. He's one of the hardest people to cover. Yeah. All right. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with him next year.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Julio Jones, and he's not top 2 simply because he's had a little bit of an injury history, but he, in my opinion, is one of the best guys to have on your team in terms of strength. He will not even play all 16 games, and he'll still get 1,500 yards in the year. Julio is durable, and while, yes, a lot of people complain he doesn't get in the end zone, he doesn't catch touchdown passes, I think that's more Matt Ryan, we know, likes to dump off to running backs and tight ends especially. And now the Falcons have Todd Gurley, so we'll see what happens with that. But Julio Jones he's arguably the best hands in the league. Like, you could argue that for sure. He's probably the best jump ball catcher in the league. He's probably the strongest wide receiver in the league when he's healthiest. And I mean, even last year, a lot of people complain, he doesn't catch touchdown passes. He only has a couple big games. Well, he's one of the hardest people to cover in the league. He still finished with 1,400 yards last year, under 100 receptions. He doesn't even need to catch 100 passes to get 1,500 yards. The man is a freak of nature. He's a beast. He is a beast. Easy, far and away. Cayman, who's your number 2?
You just talked about him, man. So I mean, you went through him pretty well. I think you explained how he could if he only caught 100, he'd still have like 1,500 yards. I mean, I think he had like 14 yards a reception, and I think Chris Godwin was the only one better than him in that stat.
Oh, that's disgusting. That's so good.
First down like every time. Do you mind if I take number 1?
Well, go ahead. Give us your number 1.
All right. Michael Thomas. I love the man.
I think we saw that coming.
So good. He was so good last year. 1,725 yards, 9 touchdowns. He had 107 yards a game. And while he was targeted more than Julio Jones, I think he made more plays. Like, he ran more after he caught it. I think he caught shorter plays and then made more out of them.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Thomas is stinking insane. He's huge, he's big, and it helps that he's the favorite target of the Saints for sure. There's a reason why. He's a top 10 player in the league. He's incredible.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and give my number 2 right here. And this is probably where I disagree with you the most. I've got DeAndre Hopkins at number 2. And this is based off a lot of his pass skill as well. The guy can catch the ball between his legs. He's one of the most acrobatic top wide receivers out there with great hands. And I think one of the reasons his stats aren't as high as the Julio Joneses, as the Chris Godwins of the world, is because the Texans have had offensive line problems, which leads to throwing problems. And it doesn't help that he's never really had a great number two because Will Fuller never stays healthy. But DeAndre Hopkins, he's a great player overall. He finished with 7 touchdowns last year, over 1,100 yards, like you said. He definitely wasn't his best year, but peak DeAndre Hopkins, I'm really kind of basing this off of his skill less than his stats last year. I'm going to be honest, but DeAndre Hopkins has a skill ceiling that's hard for a lot of receivers to reach. And he is definitely, like all of my receivers that I've said here, I consider elite. Easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my number one's Michael Thomas. Okay, I said it. We're the same there, but what else do you say? You already explained him really well, so I'll just say the dude finished with 1,700 yards and Drew Brees didn't even play for 5 games out of the year. I don't know what you want me to say. Can't guard Mike.
Will he continue like this for the rest of his career?
For the rest of his career, he'll still be dominant for sure. Someone of his caliber and talent doesn't just drop off the face of the earth. But, I mean, he's definitely due for regression just because 1,700 yards is really hard to replicate in back-to-back seasons. And Emmanuel Sanders is their number 2, and Drew Brees statistically is thrown to tight ends and number 1s just way more than he does his number 2 wide receiver. And a healthy Kamara coming back is not going to help either. So I think he's due for regression, but he'll still be a top receiver in the league easily.
And something I was thinking about is, so Michael Thomas is 27, I believe, and Julio Jones is 31.
Yeah.
So let's say Julio Jones was back when he was 27. Like, who would be better? That's just something I was thinking about.
That's so tough. That's tough, man. That's hard. That's one of those things that you would like love to see, but it's probably impossible due to their team's circumstances, and they're so different. Because Matt Ryan's has had better number 2s. I think personally, he throws to his tight ends and running backs about the same as Brees, maybe, but he spreads it out more. And I don't know, man. They have been 2 of the most dominant, and it's fitting their rivals. It's fitting their rivals for sure.
Yeah.
That's our number 1 wide receiver. Did you have any honorable mentions for tight ends and wide receivers that you wanted to talk about?
I did not.
Yeah. I had a couple.
Okay.
I had a couple, so I'll throw them in here. Honorary tight ends. Hunter Henry gets injured too much, but he's good when he plays. Austin Hooper's got a nose for the end zone, and I love Kyle Rudolph. Enough said. I'm not going to even try to explain that one. I love Kyle Rudolph, okay? He's solid. He's not exactly top 5, but he's great. Wide receivers, I've got 3 honorable mentions. Cooper Kupp, man, Jared Goff was not great throwing the ball for the first half of the year, and Cooper Kupp pushed past that, still finished with over 1,000 yards. Cooper Kupp is a great receiver. He's playing in a team that Robert Woods takes away some targets from him too, but he's a great all-around receiver. I don't think he has the strength as a lot of the other guys that we mentioned on our lists, though, which is why he's not in top 5 for me.
Yeah.
Mike Evans, he's a great deep ball receiver, but Godwin took over his number 1 role. And then Kenny Golladay, similar to Michael Thomas, had to play without a starting quarterback for a while and still finished with over 1,000 yards. Kenny Galladay's a great young receiver, and I'm excited to see where he goes from there.
Yeah. And I think one more thing to add with Cooper Kupp, if you don't mind. He had 10 touchdowns.
Yeah, he did.
I was struggling. Like, should I put DeAndre there or Cooper Kupp? And I decided to go with DeAndre just because he's experienced. I've seen him play more. Yeah. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Kupp definitely has a nose for the end zone, which is why he's been on my fantasy team 3 years straight. But anyway, Kupp is definitely he's a great receiver. For sure. So let's go ahead and move on to our top 5 running backs. If you don't mind, I'm going to start us off here. If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
All right. Thank you. Number 5, I've got Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. The dude finished. He's not going to get a ton of yards, but he will get a stupid amount of touchdowns. The guy he's a red zone threat, both in the air and on the ground, mostly on the ground though. He's an all-around player in the sense that he's not exactly the strongest, but he's quick, he's fast, he's got decent vision when it comes to getting to the end zone. Aaron Jones is a really good player, and he is probably one of the best goal line backs in the league, red zone backs inside the 20, because that's what he does. The Packers had a really easy time getting into the end zone at the end of the year because of Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a key piece in their offense, if not the key piece. He's a great overall player. He's very good.
Mm-hmm. For my number five, I put Dalvin Cook.
Nice.
I don't like it when the Packers play him because he can just tear up the defense. Yep. He had over 1,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, and he had 519 receiving yards. So in total, he had like 1,600 some yards.
All-purpose yards, yeah.
That's pretty much it. I mean, he plows through everyone. Like he's fast. He's not that big, but he's all-dimension player. All-dimensional.
Absolutely. My number 4, I've got, let me make sure I got this right, Nick Chubb.
Yay.
Out of the University of Georgia, for those of you noticing that football in the back. University of Georgia. Big Georgia fan over here. Nick Chubb is a beast. He reminds me a lot of Derrick Henry, but Chubb eats more yards. He eats just as many yards as him. They both eat a ton of yards. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
The guy is strong. He's big. I don't think it helped that the Browns' offensive line would just have random breakdowns sometimes during the season. But he hasn't gotten into the end zone as much as I think I'd like him to, and as much as I think he should. And it doesn't help that Kareem Hunt took a lot of work from him in the last few weeks of the year. But that doesn't deny his skill and the fact that Chubb gets results. He's my number 4.
And he is my number 4 as well.
There you go.
He had 1,500 yards. And I agree. He only had 8 touchdowns. He needs to get in the end zone more. Their O-line is iffy, though. And so it's not all his fault.
Yeah.
But, you explained him pretty well.
All right. You want to go ahead and hit us with your number 3?
Yeah, sure. Number 3, Aaron Jones. I'm a Packers fan, and I personally think he's better than Nick Chubb. He had about 1,100 rushing yards, 16 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
About 500 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. And I mean, that was first year, like I said before, new head coach. This will be the second year. They're, like you said, they're going to run it more probably, and I think he's just going to get so many more touchdowns this year.
Here's the thing, though. Let me ask you a question here that worries me when it comes to Aaron Jones, because theoretically I'd say he'd get more touchdowns, but they brought in A.J. Dillon, rookie from Boston College, who has a nose for the end zone. And Jamal Williams, as we know, is the Packers' passing down back. He catches passes out of the backfield as well as Aaron Jones. They both did. So you're going to have 2 running backs trying to vie for Aaron Jones's job. Do you think he's due for a little regression?
No.
Wow. Really?
He has the eye for the end zone, and I don't think anyone, except for someone we're going to talk about later, has the better eye. Like, I don't know. I can't explain him. He's like elusive, but he's smart. He's not like a show off.
Yeah.
You know? And so he knows when to stop. He knows where to go. I don't know.
Yeah. My only worry for Aaron Jones is that he's definitely not the biggest back in the league. So I'm just worried one good hit from Aaron Donald. That's my one concern for Aaron Jones, because he's not the strongest or biggest back, but you have to catch him first. You got to catch him before he gets to the end zone first. So Aaron Jones he's definitely a great running back. I'm going to go ahead and give my number 3. This one I'm a little bit leaning on the past here, but in my number 3, I've got Ezekiel Elliott, simply because, and he had a down year for him. He finished with 1,300 yards, but he had 12 touchdowns, which helps out a lot. Almost 500 yards receiving. Zeke is a great runner. he's a pure runner as well. He's got good vision. He's decently strong. Zeke's a great player overall, and he's really only 3 because of the numbers that he's put up in previous years. Because right now he'd probably be 5 sitting at for me. Otherwise, if I was just basing it purely off of this year, but knowing what Zeke can do, knowing what his skill ceiling is, it's hard for me to keep him. This is the highest I'll put him at right now, but I couldn't drop him out of my top 5.
Okay.
Who's your number 2?
Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
He is a thick guy. He's not a fast guy. But I watched a video where he stiff-armed someone for like 20 yards.
Yeah.
And he concentrates on tucking the ball away. He had over 1,500 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns in total. Yeah. And I mean, it helps that he has a great O-line to help him, but he's just an exciting player.
Yep. And I gotta agree with you. He's my number 2 as well. I traded for him last year in fantasy, but Derrick Henry is a beast. He reminds me a lot, and I think someone said this to me too. He reminds me a lot of Marshawn Lynch. He's a big, strong, tough, I will run you over kind of guy. And 16 touchdowns? The same amount of as Aaron Jones, but 500 more yards?
Yeah.
It worries me for the Titans that they're too one-dimensional with Derrick Henry, but their O-line is so good. Derrick Henry is great. He's so strong. Oh, my goodness. And the Jaguars hate him. It seems like he's got a personal vendetta against Jacksonville to me, because every time he sees them, he just runs them over all the time. But Derrick Henry is my number 2 as well. Cademan, who is our number 1? Do we really need to ask?
No, I don't. I think we can just talk about him. So he had Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
He had like 1,400 rushing yards and 1,005 receiving yards. Like what? I mean, he's like crazy fast. He had 19 touchdowns in all, so that's the same as Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
But he goes farther distances to get there.
Oh, yeah.
He is so fast. He's one of the fastest in the NFL for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about him?
Sure. McCaffrey is quick. He's got speed. He's got the burst to the edge. I don't even know he's a flex player. You could put him at the slot, in my opinion, if you wanted to. He's one of the hardest people to catch once he gets into open space. McCaffrey is an all-around package. Oh my goodness. Like he's had one of the best running performances that we've seen out of a running back since Adrian Peterson almost broke the record for most rushing yards in a year. He's an incredible all-around player. I don't know what else to say about him.
I don't either.
So, I mean, as much as we're praising Christian McCaffrey, we might as well question him as well. Do you think McCaffrey will regress this upcoming year?
No, don't think so.
Go ahead, tell us why.
I mean, he just seems like the type of guy, he's consistent. Like, he was consistent all year round, and I think he's going to be the same this year. Like, it wasn't where he had, like, 10 big games, and then the other 6, he just stunk. It was like all of them were consistently good, high scoring, a lot of rushing yards and receiving yards.
Yep.
So that's why I think.
Yeah. I think he's due for a little bit of regression simply because it's hard to top a 2,000 all-purpose yard season. And my main reason why is because they've got Teddy Bridgewater, and I don't think he's going to dump off as much as Kyle Allen. And we know, and DJ Moore somehow ended up with over 1,000 yards last year with Kyle Allen, but Bridgewater is a better quarterback than Kyle Allen, and so I think he'll spread the ball out more to his wide receivers. So if anything, I think McCaffrey's receiving yards are going to drop, while his rushing yards will probably stay pretty similar. So I think he's just due for a little bit of regression, but this does not change the fact that McCaffrey is the most electrifying running back in football, easily. And now it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Our honorable mentions for running back. Cademan, who'd you have?
I had Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, just based off of he's great. He's always been great, but based off of last year's stats,
Yeah.
he kind of sunk. Like, I mean,
Well,
he still
well,
had
for him,
a little bit for
he's
him. Okay, fair for him.
yeah.
I would put him at number 6 if we were doing top tens, but
Yeah.
I mean, you explained him already, and I just think he's not gonna. I mean, he's getting older. He's had injuries. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. What's it called? For me, I've got as honorable mentions. I've got a bunch of honorable mentions, and I feel like you said we talked about this before, and you told me running backs was one of the hardest ones to organize for you. That's because there's so many good ones. You're so right. There's so many incredible quality running backs in the league. We didn't even talk about Alvin Kamara. You mentioned before the episode
Josh Jacobs,
Joe Mixon. We didn't even get to talk about Chris Carson,
oh,
Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, who plays on the Jaguars, and he still ended up with over 1,000 yards. We didn't even get to talk about these guys because there
yeah.
are so many good running backs in the league today. It's incredible. Now, I feel like my one honorable mention that I have to defend here is Dalvin Cook. And I kept him out. I left him out. I feel like I got to defend this one. The dude is very, very injury prone. He's had shoulder problems. He's had leg problems. He's had foot problems dating back to his college days. Dalvin Cook, when healthy, could be in his running style a Christian McCaffrey type guy. He's fast. He's got decent strength. He's incredible when he's in open space, but he can't stay healthy for a whole season. And that's why I left him out. It was tough for me to do that because he's such a great player on his own, but he can't stay healthy. And that's why he's out of my top 5. But now, no joking, now it's really time for what you all have been waiting for. Really? It's time for our top 5 quarterbacks. And this is probably going to be very divisive between a lot of us. But Cademan, go ahead and start us off. Who's your number 5 quarterback in the NFL today?
Drew Brees.
Yeah.
He had, I mean, his passing yards, he didn't have a ton, like not as much as a lot of the other guys we're going to talk about, but he had close to 3,000. He still had 27 touchdowns. He's very careful with the ball. So when he throws it, you know, like there's a good chance someone's going to catch it. So he had a 75 completion percentage and only 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
So the guy's smart. He's conservative, and he's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has Michael Thomas. So
yeah, he has Michael Thomas. That's always helpful to have Michael Thomas. So this is going to be a little bit weird. My number 5, I know this is a little bit cheating here. It's a package deal. I have 3. These were so close in my, of course I do. These are so close in my mind that I couldn't do anything but have them tie. And so I'm going to go ahead and give my 3. My first number 5 is Aaron Rodgers. The dude is getting up there in age, but he's still a great quarterback. He's still very accurate. He barely got over 4,000 yards last year, but his touchdown to interception ratio is incredible. He's careful with the ball. He doesn't miss passes. He's an incredible player. 26 touchdowns. And these are the 2 people I tied him with, which you might need to let me explain. One of them, Tom Brady. He's had a lot of regression compared to his other 2 kids. He had 3 straight years with over 100 passer rating, and he's definitely dipped down. I attribute this to the fact that he's playing in a tougher division now. He's got the Bills, who were incredible last year. His team just kind of regressed. His running back situation wasn't great last year, so he didn't have that to lean on. 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's probably if I had to choose one of them to make number 6, he's my number 6. Aaron Rodgers is probably a little bit better than Brady, but I'm curious to see next year Brady with Godwin, with Evans, with Gronk again. That's going to be scary. But this is probably my highest end on number 5, Dak Prescott.
Okay.
This is a little bit weird, being that his team, went 8-8 last year. So his team has had problems, sure. But it's hard for me to discount his stats.
Okay.
Hear me out.
Okay.
The guy threw for over 300 yards in a game. And when I'm comparing him to Aaron Rodgers, of course, took his team to the playoffs. Unfortunately, they got embarrassed by San Francisco for the second time. But Dak finished 8-8, but he had 30 touchdowns, a 99.7 quarterback rating, and completed 65% of his passes. All of those stats are higher than Aaron Rodgers. So in terms of just passing statistically, Dak Prescott did better. And really the only reason why he's not any higher is one, because 11 interceptions, that's not nice, but I mean, it's okay. And also the fact that his team was 8-8. Bro, if you're doing this well, either you're Kirk Cousins with the Redskins or your team's just having problems. But he almost threw for 5,000 yards. He threw for 30 touchdowns. And those are the kind of numbers you can't ignore.
Yeah.
So that's why he's tied. He and Aaron Rodgers are tied in my book. Aaron Rodgers because he's a team leader. Dak Prescott because he's got the stats to prove his worth.
So do you think that stats or like Aaron Rodgers, the team wins a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott seems like the team doesn't win. He wasn't sure if he was going to play with the Cowboys. I mean, it was most likely, but he wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you think like the difference in how they're important? I mean, they're both important, but which is more important?
Wait, which is more important? How do you mean by that?
Between like the way you change your team's game, like the winning to losing record you put up, and the stats.
Okay, so it's hard. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, you get to a Super Bowl. Congratulations! If you win a Super Bowl, that kind of immortalizes you in history. But then again, if we're talking about Super Bowl wins, in this case, Nick Foles would be on this list. So success does have some part to play, but you can be statistically great. Dan Marino is considered one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, and he's never won a Super Bowl. And Dak Prescott, yes, I do think it's a big problem that his team can't make it past the divisional round in the playoffs. And last year couldn't beat Philadelphia to the playoffs. That's a big problem. But I think that's attributed more to team and organizational problems more than it is with just his own play style, because I think he's a great quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, if you let Aaron Rodgers loose, he'll be great. The thing for him is he hasn't needed to be, because he's had Aaron Jones, who really, in my opinion, almost was the workhorse for the team, especially when it came to scoring points and getting in the red zone. But for Aaron Rodgers, the thing that held me back a little bit was the fact that Russell Wilson played the 49ers better than he did. And you can attribute this to, the Seahawks had a better defense than the Packers. True. Or, the Packers only, but then you could say, the Packers only beat the Seahawks in the playoffs because they had Marshawn Lynch, who had been retired for a year, come out and train with them for a week. So my problem with Aaron Rodgers isn't that he's not great or he's not elite or at his peak. He's not one of the best, because he is. It's that the problems he's had against one specific team, and then the stats, he's just not as needed by his team right now. I think that's why I think in this case, if you're talking about like who's been a better quarterback for their career, Aaron Rodgers. It's not even close. But last year alone, Dak had the numbers, Rodgers had the team success, but neither of the teams were where they wanted to be.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a long conversation about that, but I enjoyed it.
But it was important.
Yeah. So you're on number 4, right?
Number 4, I believe so. Right. I put Aaron Rodgers there.
All right, there you go.
So I don't think I really need to talk about it much more.
Well, you're the Packers fan. You can talk about it a little bit.
Second year still with LaFleur.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just going to make a big difference with the stats, honestly.
Okay, gotcha. So I know we talked a little bit about the Packers running the ball more. Do you think that's going to continue? Do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do better next year now that he might have Davante Adams for a whole season? What do you think?
Yeah, I think if Davante Adams stays healthy, they're going to try to get him get it to him as much as possible.
Yeah.
When they're not as far downfield, when they're still in their territory. Once they get near the red zone, I think that's Aaron Jones's game.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I think with the Packers, they need to shore up their defense, and if they do that, then then they're like serious Super Bowl contenders for me. It's just until they get that shored up, that's what worries me for them, because their offense theoretically should be really good, with the exception of the fact that they still don't have a great number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah,
but they're going to be an interesting team to watch next year. I'm trying to be objective here with the Packers because, like, personally, I hate the Packers, you hate the Bears, we all know that. We're trying to be objective here, people. I'm going to go ahead and give my number 4. My number 4 is going to be Drew Brees. And he was out for 5. He only played in 11 games last year. The dude threw for 3,000 yards. This guy threw more touchdowns than Aaron Rodgers in 5 less games.
Yeah.
That's hard for me to deny. And the dude threw 74% completion. He's a touchdown machine. He's 41 years old, and he's one of the most effective and efficient quarterbacks of all time. Yeah. He's had the most 5,000-yard passing seasons, and we could go on and on about his accolades, from career completion percentage, from most passing yards in a career. I mean, his most consecutive games with the touchdown pass. We could go on and on about his accolades, but the fact that he's still playing at a top level and is still throwing 27 touchdowns plus at 41, that's hard for me to deny. He's my number 4. All right, I've talked a lot. How about you go ahead and give your number 3?
At number 3, I put Lamar Jackson. He had 3,100 passing yards and 36 touchdowns. Those are, like, the touchdowns. That's insane. He's not as conservative with the ball as, say, Drew Brees, but he still only threw 6 interceptions. He brought running to a quarterback, like, he brought the running game to a quarterback like no one else. 1,200 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. And he is still young. I mean, he's still learning, which is why I didn't rank him a little higher. But the Ravens do have the easiest schedule this year, so I think that's going to be good for them.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for sure. How does a team that was that powerful get better in the offseason at defense and then gets the easiest schedule in the league? How?
Nothing. I have nothing.
I don't know. I don't understand. We'll probably talk a little bit more about him in a little bit. I'll go with my number 3. I've got Russell Wilson. Man, first off, the guy's an Iron Man. He's never missed a game in his career. It's so hard to deny. He's threw for 31 touchdowns last year, 4,100 yards. I think the smartest thing that Russell Wilson ever did in his career was that he's been a lot more efficient with his running, because I think that hurt Andrew Luck a lot in his career. He got banged up. Didn't help that he had a garbage offensive line, but whatever. I love you, by the way, Andrew Luck. But Russell Wilson is great. Overall, he's probably one of the most complete quarterbacks ever. He's very accurate. I don't know what else to say. You can take it away, because I'm pretty sure he's your number 2.
He is my number 2. And, I mean, I think you said it very well. He has gotten smarter. He gets smarter every year. When he first started out, or let's say when he played for Wisconsin University, he would just continually run the ball because he could. Yeah. And he didn't necessarily have wide receivers to throw it to that would catch it. Now then he got to the NFL and he realized, you know what, I can't run as much. Right. And he's learned that more every year. And maybe it's not I can't run as much, but I think it's more now I know more when to run.
There you go. He's definitely one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league, for sure.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. Do you have anything more to say about him as your number 3 at all? Or number 2, sorry, your number 2. No. For me, my number 2 is Lamar Jackson, because he's kind of reinvented the game of football. And Russell is definitely he's got the smarts, he's got the experience, he's got the Iron Man tactic. But Lamar Jackson kind of scored over 40 touchdowns last year.
Just kind of.
Just kind of, yeah. And he kind of only threw 6 interceptions last year. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
My. It's crazy.
He was. It's so weird because a lot of people worried about him being erratic, but when you throw for 36 touchdowns and only 6 interceptions, that says something to me. That says he's learning. He's developing at a rapid pace. He was runaway MVP this year. I mean, McCaffrey, yes, he was great, but Lamar Jackson rushed for 1,200 yards. The dude is he's fearless. He's getting smarter every year. He's my number 2. So before we get to our number 1, which I'm pretty sure we're going to be agreeing on here, let's talk a little bit about Russell and Lamar. This experience versus the reinvention of football. How about you go a little bit more in depth about why you put Russell over Lamar?
Yeah, I think mainly just because Russell has the experience. He's older, and I think Lamar is still learning. Like, yeah, he scored, I mean, over 40 touchdowns. We don't see that happen very much. But I don't know. There just seems something about Russell that, like, I think he's so smart in the game. And I think Lamar, I mean, what was his rushing average per carry? Like 15 or something? I don't know.
For me, so I put Jackson number 2 more because he had just an incredible out of this world year. Russell has obviously been consistent. Russell has the ability to carry a team on his back. Russell is one of the best leaders in the game of football. And he's got 2 very good wide receivers, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. His running backs, Chris Carson, very good, but he got injured. The guy can basically single-handedly almost defeat a team. He's smart. He's, like we said, I don't know what else to say. He's got the smarts. Yeah. He's got the experience. For me, I put Lamar over him just because Lamar had such a stellar year. I feel like he deserved it for this season, but I cannot deny. I'm not going to disagree with you that much on the fact that Russell should be number 2 because both of them just have. Russell's going to have an incredible career going forward. He's looking for another Super Bowl, and Lamar had an incredible MVP season last year. So
yeah. And do you think that, like, if one of them regresses a lot, which of them is that going to be?
I would say it would be Lamar, simply because Russell Wilson is like the picture of consistency. You look at consistency in the dictionary, Russell Wilson comes up like smiling right next to it. Lamar is probably due for a little bit of regression now that it's been a year. Teams have game film on him. They're going to have time to scheme up defenses to try to stop him. Doesn't mean they will. But the chances of regression are higher for Lamar than it is for Russell for me. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree just because, like you said, Russell is the consistent player. I mean, he hasn't missed a game, I think, forever or just ever a long time.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's pretty much it. You said it really well.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fun ride. It's been a fun ride discussing all these players. Let's go ahead and say our number 1. Once again, our joint number 1. We're doing our honorable mentions first. Cademan, go ahead.
Ooh, honorable mentions. Probably Deshaun Watson would probably be right there. I mean, he has the running ability. He has the arm.
Yep.
But I just don't see him being as good as, say, Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees. He doesn't have that like stellar arm. You know what I mean? He's not as accurate, and I think that's why he runs more. Just I think their team isn't as complete, so to speak. Yeah. And so I think he has more of a burden than Drew Brees.
Very true.
Because Drew Brees has Michael Thomas. I mean, Deshaun has DeAndre, but
had.
That's right, had.
Yeah.
So that's going to be bad for him.
Yeah. For me, honorable mentions. Matt Ryan is always good statistically. He's a very good quarterback. I would say he's elite. He didn't have his best year last year compared to his MVP season, which we know how good he can do if he's at his peak. He might be a little bit on the decline, but he's still a great quarterback. he's just not quite top 5 for me. Matthew Stafford was heading for an MVP type season until he got injured last year. He was set to throw for 5,000 yards last year, and then he hurt his back. Man, Matthew, he can't catch a break, man. He's stuck with the Lions in a division with the Packers, Bears, and Vikings. I feel bad for him. And also, Deshaun Watson, I agree with you there. For me, Deshaun's main problem is A, his team has never been complete, like you said, and B, his offensive line has always been terrible. He reminds me of Andrew Luck a lot, but takes less hits because he's running for his life. Deshaun Watson, he's not as consistent as he could be. He's not at his peak. But now he's going to have Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks and Kenny Stills, I guess. And his offensive line might be better. We don't know. I feel bad for him because I loved Deshaun Watson coming out of college. And during the draft, I thought that he should have gone way earlier than he did. But it's unfortunate that a guy who's got so much skill can't get past his offensive line. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
And now it's time for what you've all been waiting for. But I feel like the thing that everybody expected. The MVP. The 5,050 man. The $400, $500 million man and your Super Bowl champion. Our number one is Patrick Mahomes II.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yep. Over 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions.
Yep.
And he had 105.3 rate. R-A-T-E. That's higher than pretty much every other quarterback. All.
Yeah.
So
he's smart.
He's an impressive guy. Yeah. He has probably next to Rodgers, I'd say, the best arm.
Yeah, for sure. He's strong. He's smart. He's got running ability. He's got a big arm. He's accurate. And now he's a Super Bowl champion. And this is probably something that if he didn't win, I don't even know if we'd be saying this. We might put Lamar Jackson at number 1, but Saints couldn't do it. Lamar couldn't beat the Titans. Russell couldn't get past the Packers. The Packers couldn't overcome the 49ers. But Patrick Mahomes won the Super Bowl, and that cements him, I feel like. Cements him as our number 1. He went from being a number 1 contender to cements him at number 1. The guy is complete package. He missed 2 games this year, and he's still our number 1.
His stats are incredible. Yeah.
Everything about the guy.
Yeah.
The stats, the eye test, everything. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we were pretty much agreed on all of our number 1s, from Mahomes to McCaffrey to Thomas to Kelsey. But our discussion for the other players, though, that was really fun, though. We went through it like everything else from 2 to 5. We have the de facto number 1s, it seems like. But after that, that's when it got interesting. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes number 1, real easy. And that is just about going to wrap us up. But before we do, we like to have 2 things. Number 1, we have our big question. And ladies and gentlemen, you probably haven't heard it here first, but you might. Dwayne Johnson's buying the XFL?
Wow. It's crazy. It just came out, man.
The XFL is saved. The XFL is saved, man.
That's going to be great for all those guys that, like, veterans and those guys that really want to make it into the NFL, but they need that experience. It's exciting for all those guys.
I know. And me, I like the indoor football league. So I'm an Arizona Rattlers fan. But the XFL was so much fun. The rules were different. The games were competitive. It was during the off season. You know what? That's what started off this entire year going downhill. The XFL got canceled, and everything else went downhill from there. But Dwayne Johnson, our savior for our football XFL savior.
Cool.
Wow. The
That's
XFL
amazing.
saved by The Rock. And ladies and gentlemen, Caben, how about you do it? It's your thing.
All right. So, verse for the week is 1 Timothy 4:8, which says, for physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it states that godliness should always come first, and really your relationship with God is the utmost importance in your life. But
Absolutely.
I mean, we can't miss the first half of the verse. Physical training is of some value. There is value there, and you can't just cast that away as like a meaningless activity. So I think that's pretty cool that like both science and scripture say that physical exercise is important.
That's a great way to put it. It's like you got to take care of your soul. That's the utmost importance, but you also got to take care of the body that God has given you. And I think I honestly, I don't know what else I can say. I thought you explained this verse really, really well. Holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. Absolutely. I don't think there's much I could say. I thought you explained that beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if we're all done with that,
yeah, you said you had a question.
Here. Yeah, AJ, could you pull out from behind you like a figure or a bobblehead just to show anyone who's gonna watch this?
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with this guy. We'll start with this guy. We'll have a guy for every episode. So
all right
here, it took me over like a year to get this guy off Amazon. Captain America with the Infinity Gauntlet, if you can see it right in there. With the not the gauntlet, with Mjolnir, the broken shield. I know it's hard to see, but he's got like lightning all around the bottom. This guy is I love this guy right here. I love this buy. I like this a lot. I had my eye on this for a while, and I finally got him. I'm very happy.
Good for you.
Thanks. And cool. I guess we could pull out one of those guys every episode now. Our featured Funko of the week. But ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna wrap us up. This was a fun episode for the both of us, I think. We like these ranking videos. Hopefully, so next time we'll be live streaming, which should be really exciting. We'll be on top of the news at that point. I don't really know. Cayman, do you want to say anything to the viewers?
I do not think so.
There we go. Like, subscribe, comment, share. You already know. Comment below your thoughts on our rankings. Did we leave anyone out? Did we insult one of your favorite players? I hope we didn't. Let us know what y'all thought, of course, in the comments below. We'll see you next time. We'll do our defensive rankings for our next episode. We should be doing multiple episodes a week, so they'll be shorter. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap us up. Be sure to have a nice day. Stay safe. Keep calm. And I didn't have a plan for the end of this sentence, so I'm just gonna cut it off right here. I'm just gonna cut it off.
Good plan.
Bro.
Yeah.
You know Dwayne Johnson, right?
Yep.
He's gonna buy the XFL.